Since the inception of the Seattle Mariners, they have been lucky to have some of the most quality starting pitchers in the history of Major League Baseball. At some point, some of these starters were arguably the face of the franchise. In this video, I will be going over the best starting pitchers in Mariners history. One thing to note, however, I will not be naming any of the Mariners starters as of 2020 or later, due to the fact that it's too early to name starters like George Kirby, Luis Castillo, and Logan Gilbert. And before I get started on this video, please subscribe to this channel as I will be pushing more Mariners nostalgic content going forward. Freddie Garcia was one of the core starters in the early 2000s, including 2 playoff appearances in 2000 and 2001. He was brought into the Seattle Mariners through the Randy Johnson trade after Johnson demanded a trade due to his contentious relationship with former Mariners president Chuck Armstrong, and that the Mariners would not give him any kind of extension after the 1997 season. In Garcia's first season with the Seattle Mariners in 1999, he pitched very well with 170 strikeouts, pitched over 200 innings, and won 17 games in 32 starts. Although his ERA was a bit high, he finished second in Rookie of the Year behind Carlos Beltran. In 2000, he was limited to just 20 starts due to a hairline fracture in his right tibia. He still made a significant contribution to the Mariners starting rotation and pitched very well in the 2000 playoffs, including 2 victories against the New York Yankees in the American League Championship Series. The 2001 season would be the best of his career, where not only did he contribute to the history-making 116-win season for the Seattle Mariners, he made his first All-Star appearance along with recording a win in the 2001 All-Star Game, and he led the American League in ERA over the likes of Roger Clemens, Barry Zito, and Mark Burley. However, in the 2001 playoffs, he went 1-2 in his 3 starts in the playoffs, including losses to the Cleveland Indians and the New York Yankees. In the 2002 season, he was off to a great start, earning himself another All-Star appearance, including recording the final out of the 2002 All-Star Game, which did result in a tie. Unfortunately, he struggled throughout the second half, going just 5-5 with a 5.66 ERA. The timing couldn't have been worse, since the Mariners didn't make any serious moves for the trade deadline due to the cheapness of management. Combining all of that, the Mariners missed the playoffs for the 2002 season. Moneyball Oakland A's certainly didn't help either.
Up on the Angels. Swung on, fly ball, deep right field, they've done it again!
2003 was clearly a forgettable season, as he struggled throughout the season to the point that he was on the trading block due to his ERA being above 5 going into late July. No team wanted to take a chance on him at the time. This was also the same season where the Mariners refused to make another move due to management's cheapness, and the Mariners missed the playoffs once again. In Garcia's final season in 2004, he pitched very well. In fact, he pitched like the way he did in 2001, but unfortunately, there was no run support for him, which made his win-loss record look bad. Other than that, he pitched a 3.20 ERA and was actually the only effective starter for the Mariners in the rotation. However, he would be traded before the 2004 All-Star Game to the Chicago White Sox and would eventually be a key contributor to their 2005 championship. Mark Langston was a big deal for the Mariners at the time, as he broke out into one of the first superstar pitchers in Mariners history in 1984. The only other notable pitcher the Mariners had was Mike Parrott, who went 14-12 with a 3.77 ERA, which was the best out of any pitcher in Mariners history at the time, and Gaylord Perry, who just happened to be a Mariner when he won his 300th game of his career. In Mark Langston's first season in 1984, he won 17 games, which became the franchise record at the time, and struck out over 200 batters. He and other Mariners rookie Alvin Davis were key impact players for the Mariners as they improved from the previous season of 60-102 to 74-88, giving promise for the future of the Mariners. He eventually made his first All-Star appearance in 1987 with a 19-13 record and striking out 262 batters. In his 6 seasons in Seattle, he struck out over 200 batters 4 times. However, in 1989, he was traded to the Montreal Expos for the package that included wild-throwing left-handed pitcher Randy Johnson. I really hope that trade pans out. In 1996, Mariners lost Randy Johnson for the majority of the season due to back pains, and the Mariners starting rotation was left thin to the point Bob Wells became a starter while he was normally a relief pitcher. Before the trade deadline, the Mariners' top 3 starters were Sterling Hitchcock, Bob Wolcott, and Bob Wells, and those pitchers were not going to be enough to get the Mariners into the playoffs. At the trade deadline, the Mariners traded outfielder Darren Bragg to the Boston Red Sox for veteran left-handed pitcher Jamie Moyer. Moyer pitched well, going 6-2, and was a key contributor to the amazing September run to the playoffs, which did fall short unfortunately. He remained on the Mariners as the second starting option behind Randy Johnson for the 1997 season, and he also pitched very well, helping the Mariners reach the playoffs. He went on to pitch for the Mariners until 2006, where he was one of the top pitchers for the Mariners, including winning 20-plus games in 2001 and 2003, along with an All-Star appearance. Unfortunately, from 2004 to 2006, he struggled with the Mariners along with the team, and he was traded away to the Philadelphia Phillies for a couple prospects that eventually didn't pan out. He would eventually win a World Series with the Phillies in 2008 and was inducted into the Mariners Hall of Fame in 2015. Jamie Moyer will always be remembered for his off-speed pitches and excellent control with the pitchers, throwing batters off balance.
Ooh la la!
Mariners baseball, Soto Mojo.
Felix Hernandez, one of the greatest Mariner of all time. He was born in Venezuela as he grew up playing baseball. He was spotted by part-time Mariner scout Luis Puenmayer in a tournament near Maracaibo. He was impressed by his ability to throw 90 miles an hour at such a young age. He gave the Mariners notice and was eventually signed in 2002. Fun fact, the Mariners were not even the highest bidder for Felix, as the Yankees and Braves were also interested in him. However, Felix chose the Mariners because of his idol Freddie Garcia, who was with the Mariners at the time. Throughout his time in the minor leagues, he pitched very well to the point at the start of the 2005 season, he was ranked as the best pitching prospect in baseball. The Mariners eventually called him up for his major league debut on August 4th, and eventually winning his first start on August 9th against the Twins. Throughout August, he pitched very well with a 1.84 ERA, showing promise for the future. He eventually finished the season 4-4 with a 2.67 ERA. In 2006, he struggled going 12-14 with a 4.52 ERA. In 2007, Felix improved to 14-7 and nearly recorded a no-hitter, but gave up a hit against JD Drew, but he did finish with a one-hitter. 2008 wasn't really much to remember since the Mariners lost 101 games with a payroll of over $100 million. But he did hit a grand slam off of All-Star Johan Santana, which was done for the first time in the Major League history as an American League pitcher. 2009 was when he finally broke out into an All-Star and recorded over 200 strikeouts for the first time of his career, along with helping the Mariners improve to 85 victories. In 2010, the Mariners struggled to another 100-loss season. Felix did win Cy Young Award, along with a league-leading 2.27 ERA off of a 13-12 record, which was mostly due to the lack of run support from the offense, which was dead last in the league. 2011 and 2013 were his all-as-usual All-Star performances, only see the Mariners finish below 500 in each season, but in 2012, he recorded a perfect game for the first time in franchise history, and this would remain as the most recent perfect game in the major leagues. 2014 was where Felix was at his absolute prime, with a career-best 2.14 ERA and a career-high 248 strikeouts, and arguably in that season, the starting rotation was actually the strength of the team. This was the best chance for the Mariners to make the playoffs, but unfortunately, a meltdown in the final parts of September, including a meltdown on himself against the Toronto Blue Jays, doomed his chance for the playoffs, and they would miss the playoffs by one game. 2015 would be his last starring season, where he did put up the all-as-usual, but the Mariners were nowhere near the playoffs. Then in 2016, this is where his career would turn for the worse, as his velocity would worsen, and the wear and tear leading up to 2016 would finally catch up, and he was never the same. The last few seasons with the Mariners were nothing but forgettable, as he would decline heavily to the point that he was actually relegated to the bullpen in 2018 and a fifth starter in 2019. He would pitch his final start at the end of the 2019 season with a strong effort, and would be taken off the field for the last time. He would later sign with the Atlanta Braves and the Baltimore Orioles, but wouldn't pitch in the major leagues, and would retire. In my opinion, with the career Felix Hernandez had, carrying Mariners teams that were just terrible over the years, he will go down as the most tragic hero in Mariners history, as he didn't get to pitch one game in the postseason. However, he was inducted into the Mariners Hall of Fame for the 2023 season, but due to the teams that he had to deal with in his career, and his not impressive win-loss record, which wasn't even his fault, his chances for the Hall of Fame is slim as of now. To no one's surprise, Randy Johnson is the greatest pitcher in Mariners history. He was with the Mariners from 1989 to 1998. He was brought into the Mariners through the trade where the Mariners dealt Mark Langston to the Montreal Expos, who were trying to compete for the playoffs at the time. In the early years, Randy Johnson did show flashes of greatness with his amazing pitching velocity and slider, but he was wild and inconsistent where he walked over 100 batters from 1990 to 1992. He did record a no-hitter in 1990 against the Detroit Tigers, and he also led the league in strikeouts in 1992. Finally, in 1993, he found his control and broke out arguably the best pitcher in baseball. He earned a spot to the All-Star game where he did put on a show against National League All-Star John Kruk.
Fanning himself off. Johnson has had pitches clocked at as much as 102 miles per hour in Major League play. Second half resumes on Thursday.
Look at the next step. Right leg.
He bailed out again at the breaking ball.
He wants no part of Randy Johnson.
This kind of response.
I don't think so. You knew that was coming. John had no chance.
He recorded 300 strikeouts for the first time of his career. He credited his baseball success to baseball legend Nolan Ryan, where he did tell Randy to work on his mechanics, as that was one of the issues he had early in his career. 1994 would be another great season for Randy Johnson, and the Mariners were actually in contention for the playoffs, but the strike of 1994 would cut the season short. 1995 was where Johnson had the best season of his career at the time, where he was 18-2 with 294 strikeouts and a league-leading 2.48 ERA. He carried the Mariners throughout the season, including the times where Ken Griffey Jr. was injured. In the one-game playoff against the California Angels, he dominated and pitched a complete game. He also won a start against the New York Yankees in the American League Division Series and pitched out of the bullpen just 2 days later in the deciding Game 5 where the Mariners won and advanced to the American League Championship Series. Unfortunately, the Mariners would lose, and Randy Johnson didn't even record a win, and was pretty much out of gas for Game 6, as the Mariners suffered a 4-0 defeat. Although the Mariners could not complete their run for the World Series, the 1995 run still remains as the most nostalgic season in Mariners history, and Randy Johnson had much to do with that. Without his efforts, Seattle would most likely wouldn't have seen a baseball team after that season. Unfortunately, in 1996, his season was cut short due to a back injury, and was limited to just 14 games, and the Mariners would miss the playoffs. 1997 was where Randy Johnson rebounded back into his all-star form, and he pitched very well, leading the Mariners rotation along with Jamie Moyer and Jeff Fassero, and even put on a show in the All-Star game against Larry Walker.
Tip of the cap, and now here we go. He did it again! He did it again! He gets Larry Walker. I told you it hit right-handed. We were talking about it before the game. He batted right-handed earlier in the year and batted.
The Mariners would win the division and return to the playoffs, but he would get crushed by Baltimore in Game 1 and would also lose in Game 4, and the Mariners would experience an early exit out of the playoffs. Then in 1998, Randy Johnson was looking for a contract extension, but the Mariners were not interested in giving him the extension, as Mariners president Chuck Armstrong claimed that he was past his prime, which led to them having their beef going into 1998. That following season, he saw a decline where his ERA nearly doubled of last season, and Johnson even admitted that he was distracted throughout the season due to not getting that contract. He was ultimately traded to the Houston Astros, which included the package of Freddie Garcia, Carlos Guillen, and John Halama. All three of those players would be key players for the runs of 2000 and 2001, and I did make a video explaining the 2000 season, so check that out. Johnson dominated the remaining of the 1998 season, putting up unprecedented numbers, helping Houston reach the playoffs. He eventually signed with the Arizona Diamondbacks, where he won a World Series in 2001. He eventually retired in 2009, and not only earned the Mariners Hall of Fame, but he also earned the Baseball Hall of Fame. Overall, it was unfortunate that Randy Johnson did not finish his career in Seattle, as he was a big part of the team of the 90s, but of course, incompetent upper management got in the way. Well, those are my thoughts on my top 5 Mariners starting pitcher in Mariners history. Let me know in the comments which pitchers I missed, and thank you for watching.